Hi, I'm so glad you're joining us. My name is Jason Gant, and I serve as the pastor with Kids and Families, and we want to be with parents. That's why we started this podcast where we're interviewing people we think you can learn from, felt needs in our community, great insights of parenting and being together with our kids. And today, you're going to learn and hear from Sarah McGinnity. She is the owner and founder of KC Mom Collective, which is this cool, written by moms for moms place here in the Kansas City online arena. It's just really cool. Great information, but also insights from one mom to another. And they're just trying to do some great stuff here. They're building community as they're taking on major issues, but also offering just great tips and hacks for families. Like you're going to hear about a great M&M activity at the dinner table that's going to help you kind of with your kids and parenting, but also you're going to hear the depth of her heart of why she's doing this. And so I'm so glad you joined us. So let's jump in. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. So I am a mom of four. So I have an 11-year-old, 8-year-old, 7-year-old, and a 5-month-old. So we got a busy house.
5 months to 11 years. That span is awesome.
We took a break. We call the baby our dessert baby because we can truly enjoy her because we have no other
awesome.
little people running around. So it's been an adventure, but one I really loved. And I've been a member of Resurrection for 12 years.
Cool.
When we first moved to Kansas City with my husband, joined downtown, and now we're at Leawood. But for my professional life, I'm owner of Kansas City Mom Collective, which will celebrate 10 years in July.
10 years. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So it's a resource for moms and parents in Kansas City, and started off kind of as a hobby where moms would just get to write about their journeys, and now is kind of a multimedia site with resources for moms and community events and just other ways to connect moms online and offline.
Well, and you have a huge following. First of all, did you envision it to be as big as it is 10 years later?
No, because, social media's changed. Like when we started, there was no Instagram at all. I remember resisting getting on Instagram because I thought, well, this is just pictures. And now it's the main way we connect and build community with people. So it's definitely changed.
How many followers do you have?
We reach about 50,000 across our different platforms.
That's just cool.
And reach about 1 million on Facebook every year.
What an opportunity. When I was hoping to interview Sarah, part of the reason was I was impressed by lots of resources, lots of cool stuff. And we'll get into that. Lots of ways to just give information to moms. But I was impressed by the wealth of writers and people and how that came together. Tell us about that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So we started off with 12 writers. And now we have a team anywhere between, 20 and 30 moms from all very intentionally trying to get moms from different life perspectives. So that's anything from racial diversity to empty nester moms to a mom who's pregnant, single moms, as many perspectives as we can get so that every Kansas City mom can come to our site and see themselves in at least one person.
I love hearing that because that's what we hope to do too, right?
Yes.
We're hoping to be a community for all parents, for all moms, and they can find a connection here and a connection to other moms. I know I'm a parent of 2 teenage daughters, and the biggest deal for us when my wife and I were reading all that you're supposed to read and getting ready was we had some other people helping us through that had just had kids. And so they were kind of like, here, okay, first of all, you've read too much.
It's not going to matter.
Right. But it was just good to not feel alone. We didn't feel alone. And I know, especially for my wife, because there's only so much I can understand as a dad. But as a mom, that's a unique role and a really important role, a role that is so valuable. And so I love what you guys are doing. It's great to talk to you today. And just hear a little bit of your story. And as we've talked, first of all, you said something to me in our kind of pre-discussion about your heart, your journalism heart. And I thought that was an interesting thing. I'd like for you to just give us a little picture of how that connects with your heart.
Okay. So I majored in print journalism, which is not a thing
print
anymore.
Journalism, gone, right? Doesn't exist.
And so I first worked for newspapers, was editor of my college newspaper, and then worked for actually a program to get teens to read newspapers.
Yeah.
And look how that turned out.
Yeah.
And so Kansas City Mom Collective has given me an opportunity to just fill that cup of mine of writing, but also just producing content, targeted at people, either resources or that support to make them feel less alone. And it's just given me a great outlet to do that personally.
Right. I just thought that was cool. I thought that was a good personal touch when you think about why you're doing what you're doing. And you also shared, you guys went through some pivotal moments, some shifts, like the rest of the world when it came to COVID and some other things. I'd love to just kind of hear you speak to that and how that shifted what you're doing and why,
So when it used to be Kansas City Mom's blog, that's how it started out. And so that it was very much at the time when every mom just had, a WordPress site and she was writing about her daily life.
Well,
and
they were endless. It was
people
like
ate it up. And then, things have changed and we have what seems like less time and less, interest in reading those things. So we do still have a team of moms that write, but I feel like they have shifted in their content toward kind of bringing moms in. So I think that started with COVID and was really a very big turning point for us because, February of 2020, we were having, one of our best years ever signing we have, customers in Kansas City. So anybody who's trying to reach moms, we work with them.
Right.
It was going great. And then COVID hit. And so some of our biggest customers are attractions that you go to in person.
Right.
That all shut down. And then
places to take your kids, right?
Places to take your kids. Nobody's doing that. And then hospitals that didn't have extra money to spend on advertising, they're now treating COVID patients and they don't have time for anything. And we canceled our huge community event. It was just this devastating, week with hard decisions. But then we really pivoted. And I feel like that's where my journalism training came in of we're going to provide resources. So we had 101 things to do during quarantine. We had online schools, different online resources that you could do with your kids while you're stuck at home and trying to balance how moms can work at home and have all their kids at home. And I think moms are in this unique position of this battle of they were home, they had kids, they're trying to do school, they're trying to work, and it was such a lonely place.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And I think we really saw a mission of we can really step in here and fill this gap of come to us, we'll help you, we'll provide resources, we'll write stories about this is how I'm feeling. Are you feeling this too?
Right.
And so that I think was really pivotal in finding content and realizing our mission.
Right.
And then later that year we had, social unrest, George Floyd's killing, and we were able to use our platform kind of in a similar way, but different of amplifying Black voices, the voices of Black moms,
awesome.
And just different perspectives that people were feeling in the community. And we recognize we have a privilege with being able to reach a large community.
Yes,
and
got influence.
Be able to use that at pivotal moments for change or just to support.
Well, it feels like you're really offering community.
Yes.
And it reminds me of in Hebrews chapter 10, there's this great verse about people coming together. And one translation says to spur one another on with love. Mm-hmm. And I think about a mom in every situation, no matter who they are, needs to be spurred on by love, right? And we all need love. We're creatures who are designed to be and experience love and offer love and give love. And that's who God is. And so in this that's what I'm hearing in this shift. The shift was this community orientation shift, but also a recognition of we have an opportunity to do some good, some influence here, not just come together for sharing of information, which is kind of how it started, but then it just really blew up.
Well, and I think, social media can be such a vile place.
Sure.
And moms, I think, are very guilty of judging each other or, whether it's tired and hormones and feeling, inadequate, whatever, spurs judgment. I think moms are very guilty of that. And so I was, sharing with you earlier that I think the collective has, when I had my first baby, I was sure this was the exact way to do it. I read all the books. I was certain I will do this with my child and I'll do this. And anybody who does it any different is obviously not as educated or as wrong. But then, you have a kid, you actually have the baby, and you realize none of that actually applies. Right. My first cried for 4 hours every night for months.
Sure.
And so none of the things worked. And then I had another kid, and it was completely different than the first kid. And then, all 4 of my kids are completely different.
Yes.
And as they gotten older, I'm humbled over and over and over. And so I think having access to all these moms, and hopefully we're providing outwardly the same thing of we're all trying to do what's best for our family.
Right.
And this is a place where you can come and not be judged. And we're going to provide an encouraging and supportive place.
Yes.
And reject all of that judgment and hate and come together and just be the best moms we can be.
I love that. That just speaks to, I believe, what God is calling us all to do and to be. And we have this ministry here called Share Church, where we're just trying to share best practices across churches. And it's the same idea. If some of our best learning is really peer learning, right? Like you learn from your friends, from your new community, you learn from where people have failed, right? The most of my greatest learning about parenting was somebody who was willing to say, here's where I blew it. Don't do like I did. I don't know if you can relate, but I remember my wife and I both learning so many things from people who were willing to say, here's where I blew it. They didn't try to put up the front of like, I did it perfectly and I'm doing it perfectly. And, as a dad of teenagers, I can just I could sit for hours and share with you all the ways I've blown it.
Yeah.
It's an everyday process, right? I thought one of the things you said was about knowing moms on a deeper level and this intentionality around empathy. I'd love to hear you sort of react to that as you think about what you're doing when it comes to supporting and caring for moms.
I think it's just knowing. We have moms share with us in our internal group, or sometimes just a message of, oh, wow, I read this and I felt so alone until I read it, and here's my reaction to it. Or moms within my internal group who will say, I haven't told anyone this, but I'm struggling with XYZ.
Right.
And I find that I just have empathy, realizing like we're all struggling and we're all, rejoicing in some things, but just having empathy for the working mom, or empathy for the mom who is single and trying to make ends meet, or, it was just recently, we have racial violence, and then you have a mom who's scared to take her, kids to a Lunar New Year celebration because just a week ago, a mass shooting happened. Right. And just realizing like we all have stuff.
Right.
And just access to that is a unique, I think, privilege.
I have been, as a dad, my wife is better at the empathy. People presume I have empathy because I'm a pastor, and I do. But I don't have it as great as my wife has. It's a natural gift for her. She has this empathy. And, our daughters are built a little more like me is what I've discovered. And so I've been working on this. We need to practice our empathy muscle here, like help to see. One thing I've said, I don't know if you've said this, but is we never know what people are going through. We never know what's happening in their life. And a lot of times that's what might spark a behavior.
Yes.
And so we're going to give grace in that moment as best we can, right?
Yeah.
And I know you've personally had some struggles, some unexpected challenges in your parenting life. And I wonder if there's one that you would share that has just been, a journey for you and working on it every day. And I just, you had shared something I thought was really beautiful and authentic. And I think parents would really connect with it.
Yeah. So our son, who is entering middle school next year, but when he was home with virtual school, we started seeing just challenges. Like he couldn't sit still, and he was starting to lie, and all these things that seemed out of character. And ultimately was diagnosed with ADHD and anxiety. And it was such a lonely time in our parenting of not knowing, being overwhelmed with choices of give him medication, don't give him medication, take him to therapy, just all these different options. And just the stigma that can be attached to some of that, as common as it is. There's some stigma, and just seeing him struggle. But I was able to connect with a mom who now is a very good friend who just walked that road 2 years before of being diagnosed, and then I still, check in with her almost daily, and I'll be texting and saying, do you think this is being a preteen or is it ADHD?
Right.
Or how did you know when you needed to switch medications? Yeah. And she can, being 2 years just ahead, can mentor me kind of in that way of, well, here's what we tried and it didn't work, or what did work. And I had shared, so we do Takeover Tuesdays on our Instagram, which is one of our most popular social media features, where we have a mom on our team, or sometimes a community member, take over Instagram for the day, and you just get insight into her life. And so I had done that one time when I was taking and kind of used it as a platform for ADHD, which my pediatrician had actually encouraged me to do when I told her how lonely I felt, and said, well, you have this platform.
Right.
Why not use it? And so when I felt, strong enough to do that, I did a whole takeover, and I talked about her diagnosis, and with his permission, I got, my son's permission.
Sure.
And he'd gone to therapy that day. And I had countless messages, emails from people saying, where does he go to therapy? Here's what I'm seeing in my house. Does this sound like what happened in your house?
Yeah.
And just that, please help me, but wanting that, mom, and not that I'm an expert, but it was great to be able to point out resources or just say, I get it. I didn't have anybody until I connected with this other mom. And it's great to, fill that gap.
Okay, that's beautiful. Because I would argue that was ministry.
Yeah.
And that's what was happening, is that there was a Holy Spirit movement in that moment of the parents that needed encouragement, needed to know they weren't alone. It reminds me of the iron sharpens iron piece of scripture in Proverbs. It just, says there's this value of when we come together over these topics and sharing experiences and sharing learnings. This is community. Mm-hmm. This is community. And lift it up, plus accountability, plus encouragement. Those pieces are just critical in our life. It makes me think of, there's often something we say in the church is that you mentioned mentorship. And so this idea that we should all have a mentor and we should all be mentoring someone. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good way to live your life, just to ask that question of who am I receiving mentorship from and who am I mentoring? And it could be topic based. It could be, which parent do I look to because I want to be like that parent, or which person can I coach in parenting? I think that's a great perspective to just ask yourself sometime, how are we doing there? Because I know for me, and maybe you would identify, but for me, I was always thinking about who's pouring into me, not my role to pour into someone else. And it's kind of a self-centered perspective for me. And so you have to grow through those moments of no, I got to pour into somebody else. And so I'm just grateful you shared that. And I think there's a value there for us all, that vulnerability is a strength of leadership and an opportunity for God to use us in powerful ways. I want to shift gears for a moment and let's just talk about some fun things you've learned and through the collective, right? Maybe some fun destinations or tips or mom hacks. You shared some fun things that I immediately was like, oh, I'm doing that with my kids. I thought those were cool. Why don't you share some?
Okay. So one fun thing I learned this week from another mom was they do an M&M dinner. And so
this is good.
I'm sure I'm not the only mom who has kids who don't follow manner rules at dinner. And so she puts a little bowl of M&Ms by everyone's plate.
Right.
And then throughout the dinner, if you have bad manners, I get to take one of your M&Ms, and that just keeps going. And then at the end, however M&Ms you have left in your bowl is how many you get to eat for dessert.
You get to eat this.
So you can't do it often, because in my house, that would spur lots of tears.
Sure. Sure.
But, the parents have fake bad manners so that the kids can take them, or to make a point.
That's pretty fun.
But really, on guard of is this bite too big? Am I getting an M&M taken away? So I'm starting that in my house. Another one I learned from one of our moms of adult children, as I was lamenting about, I want to be the house where all the neighbor kids come. There are some times when I'm nursing a baby, or I just need quiet, that I don't want 10 boys in my house.
You want peace in your home for
a moment?
Right? That's too much to ask.
Especially in the summer, because I'm everybody's here. And so she has a flag on her porch, which is what I'm going to try this summer, of your green means you are welcome. You can come in, ring the doorbell. Don't ring the doorbell. Just come in. This is a safe place for you to play, do whatever. Red the McGinnity children are not available. Don't even ring the doorbell. Like, we are off today. And I like that because I have a hard time setting that boundary of I want to be the place,
Sure.
but I also like need that sanity. So it's just a symbol.
Think that'll work with salespeople or solicitors? I remember being told the same thing when we were having kids by mentors older than me. They were like, hey, you want to be the house that the kids want to be at. And I remember thinking like, yeah, I do, right? Because you keep a pulse on your kids.
Right.
But yeah, I've experienced the same thing. It can get pretty exhausting. You want to like, hey, let's rotate around. Let's take turns everywhere and let's at least give a break. And so we've had to do that with our daughter on occasion. Like, hey, we're going to be family tonight.
Right.
You know, which is never received well.
No.
But
No.
it's what's important, right?
Right.
So that's cool. You had mentioned something about even just trips, like that they don't always have to be huge and grandiose. And I think we don't talk about that enough.
Yeah, we have, in the past couple of years, we've gotten to partner with a lot of local destinations, whether it's a staycation in Kansas City or just a few hours away. And, you know, our family, we travel a lot and we travel far. I mean, we drove to the Grand Canyon and we're traveling internationally at spring break and we love it. But some of my greatest memories, and I feel like those core memories that I'm creating for my kids, have been at like Wichita or Omaha,
Right.
Oklahoma City. And just experiencing, I mean, it's low key. I don't have this big, long agenda. I just have a couple like key places I want to go. It's close to home. So it wasn't like a lot of work to get there.
Yeah.
And we do have, I mean, we're driving distance to so many different places.
Right.
And
Right.
so we've been collecting all those. And I'd say some of our highest viewed content is just road trips and we promote it for spring break or summer.
Right.
But it makes that accessible
That's cool.
without a lot of money or time.
Yeah. Plus, you just learn, you know, at least I've already learned from the collective, just searching around like some of the resources in the area that didn't even know existed. And I've been here for a while and I think like, I know all the kid friendly stuff, but you find new things all the time and your writers are sharing about that.
Yes.
And sharing how well it went, which I thought is really important. Cause I know when I'm looking at a restaurant or an amusement park or anything, I'm going to look at the reviews and in a way, the Mom Collective's kind of giving us that insight like a review. Right.
And we try to not just say, you know, for example, Crown Center, like it's a great place for young kids and there's so many different little spots.
Yeah.
But instead of just listing that, I mean, anybody can list that stuff.
Right.
But we're going to give you a mom's perspective on how to do that, you know, successfully. So where to park at Crown Center so that you can just roll your stroller right in and not have to go upstairs or the escalator.
That's huge.
Stuff like that really can define whether you have a successful outing or not.
Right.
Especially with a 2-year-old.
Because you got to bring all the stuff.
Right.
Right? Like,
Yes.
I never realized till I became a parent, like, wow, there's so much stuff.
Yeah.
And moms know that more than anybody. Right? You guys,
Yeah.
It's just all the stuff.
Yes.
All the stuff. I thought it made me think about in Galatians 6, where Paul is writing that the faith community is called to carry one another's burdens. And I know, you know, for you, this is a business, but I can sense in your heart, I can tell it in what's being written. I can see it in the writers and who you're very specific and about who you're choosing and the input and all meant to help share that burden as a community. Like the burden of knowledge, the burden of insight, the burden of experience and the burden of, hey, you're not alone. And
Right.
I just think that's really valuable. So I just appreciate that. I want to say thank you as a parent because I know my wife has benefited from your material.
Well,
And so anyway, just a kind of a final thought as we're thinking about supporting moms and supporting parents, and in any final word you might share just about what you hope for the future of the Mom Collective and hope to continue to create more of. I'm looking forward to this partnership as we think about it as a church and a faith community of how we can support moms, support parents. We want to be what we're starting to say is with parents. And I think you guys have that same mindset. And so any final thoughts you'd want to share?
I mean, we just want to keep providing resources and community events where we can make life in Kansas City easier for moms and less alone. But then also, you know, what drives me is not, I mean, the bottom line is great. The Facebook views and the page views are all great. And that helps, you know, sustain my family since this is my job.
Sure.
But what makes it worth it and makes me keep going is the ability to connect with moms and know that we're making a difference in their lives. And whether it's making it easier for them to just be a mom or a woman in Kansas City, where it's developing pride where they live,
Yes.
or just making them a better, stronger family. That's why we do it. And that's why I hope we just continue to grow in that way and reach more moms.
I so appreciate those words, and we identify them too. We believe we're the best place to raise a family here at Resurrection, and we want to live into that hope, that vision. And so we're trying to do more things to provide support for families' faith formation together. And, we're offering spring break mission trips for families now. And there's going to be some summer international trips and family retreat in the fall, and even a family pilgrimage to the Holy Land that we're going to move into. Some really, great ways. One of the things that parents can pick up right now on any given Sunday in our program is our Talkin' Tunes card. And they can take that and they can hook it on their rearview mirror. And on one side are questions for elementary age, another side for early childhood age. And they can cue the Spotify list on there and Talkin' Tunes. So they've got some questions to talk about what our kids are learning on the weekend, and also the music that they're singing that they know motions to. And that's just fun. So that's an example of like what we're hoping to do too. And so I think we're going to learn more from you. And so we're going to continue to kind of read and watch the collective and get great insights from what you're learning. And we'll partner more together in the future. I thank you so much, Sarah, for being here today and helping us really get this thing going as we seek to be with parents as a church. We're grateful for you and your work.
Thank you so much.